All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am Istherenoonelse, and the video I'm bringing you today, wanted to have a discussion about my last videos, wanted to answer some questions that I've been given that I thought were worthy of talking. Instead, like, I responded to those people, but then I thought it'd be worthy to do a video on. And we're also just going to look at some old videos, because I said I was going to make a video like this in the past, and so this is going to be a little bit of a longer video. We're going to dive through each individual thing. You know, hopefully I can make this kind of fun, and you know, we can just kind of talk about it, and you know, whether you agree or disagree with me, that's cool. At least you kind of know where I'm coming from. So yeah, one of the questions that was, or one of the comments that was posted on my wall after my two recent parody videos was, you know, why do you care about proc sets? You know, this isn't a competitive game. You know, it's not that serious. It's not that competitive. Some stuff is going to be overpowered. And that's true. You know, that's always been true. Some stuff has always been overpowered. You know, it's different things come and go. You know, sometimes it's proc sets, sometimes it's high damage sets like New Moon and Fury. They get adjusted, you know, over time, and you know, new stuff comes to the forefront, and new things that you don't expect come into play, and they become overpowered, and all sorts of things. But whether or not this game, I mean, this game isn't competitive right now, you know, and it probably won't. There's no way it has a chance of being competitive until lag gets fixed. And let's be honest, I mean, we're a year into performance fixes, and it's not happening. So yes, you know, like, until that happens, no, this isn't a competitive game. 100% with you. However, what I wanted to show you guys was the 6.1.0 patch notes, which was last patch. They did hundreds of gear set changes. I mean, if you guys watch my video, I was going hoarse reading all of these different gear set changes. Now, a few of them were quite a bit larger, but a lot of them were pretty small. 7th Legion decreased the weapon damage and health recovery granted by the set to 341, down from 350. They reduced the weapon damage on 7th Legion Brute by 9. Spinners, they reduced the pen on spinners by 10. They did the same thing with Spriggans. What else we got? What are the other? Searbane's Grip reduced the magic restored by the set down to 805, down from 860, so 55 magicka restored from the set. Thunderbug reduced the damage done by the set, because, you know, Thunderbug was super strong, so they reduced it from 5160 to 4932. You know, 200 damage change. So when you look at a lot of these changes, they literally, like I said, it was hundreds of sets where they went through, and yes, some of them were a lot bigger, but a lot of them were just small changes like that. And what I have to ask you guys is, does this look like a development team that isn't looking out to try and balance the sets? You know, this is what it looks like to me. You know, whether or not they achieve their goal, it remains to be seen, you know, but this to me looks like that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to balance these sets. They wouldn't post hundreds of gear sets if they were just like, you know, who cares? It's a casual game. Stuff's overpowered. It is what it is, you know, whatever. They reduced New Moon Acolyte by 80 weapon damage. They reduced Fury by 120, and then another 120. My cat's gonna yell at me now. They've reduced those two sets the last couple patches, and you know, there was a point in time last year where everybody was running New Moon and Fury. If you weren't a Stamina Nightblade and you were a Stamina build, New Moon and Fury was essentially best in slot on just about every build in the game. It was just, it gave you the most healing, gave you the most damage, you know, like, that's what you ran. There was no reason to run anything else, because that was the best, you know. And people complained about it, you know. People complained about it and said, hey, you know, there's not enough balance in the game. There should be more sets besides these two sets. I mean, let's be honest, like, I got tired of running New Moon too, you know, because it was the best set. You know, I want to run other stuff. So they brought them down. And so now sets like Briarheart and Spriggans and Titanborn and all these other Clever Alchemists, all these other sets have their place. They're all different, but they kind of, they're different in their own unique way. They have different things, but they kind of function, you know, they're all in the same tier. You know, these are all in the same tier. And so when you look at this, it's like, okay, cool. You know, they've done a good job with these, you know, stat-based sets and attempting to balance them and make them relatively close. And I think, and when it comes to proc sets, this is my opinion, you know, and I this is what I think what happened. I I think they did this standardization based off of like parses on a trial dummy or a test dummy or something like that. And if you think about, what a test dummy has, they don't have any critical resistance. They don't have high resistances like PvP players. And so when you're running a parse on a test dummy and you're like, okay, with this build, I have 90k DPS. Now I want to put on Sheer Venom and use the same rotation. How much damage does Sheer Venom have to do to compete with the higher crit values of this other set? And so when you're doing that against a trial dummy, you have to up the damage of proc sets quite a bit to compete with stat-based sets, if that makes sense. Now, when you go into PvP, everybody's wearing like 3k crit resist, 3,500 crit resist, 30,000 resistances. They're a lot tankier than trial dummy. They are more resistant to impenetrable. They have CP, so they take a lot less damage. And so if you did a parse on them, like you wouldn't, if you did two different parses, your value that you would come up with for proc sets to balance it out would be completely different in both situations, is what I'm trying to say. And so when you balance proc sets around rotations, it ends up giving you a higher value that you then bring into PvP because, in like crit values that are valuable in PvE don't really matter in PvP. And then all of a sudden you take into account that, and then you can slap on Markarth, which gives you a 25% modifier. That's when you start getting this really strong imbalance. And so I think what they did makes a lot of sense for PvE. And that's why I'm talking about this, because I don't think, I think this was just missed, I mean, I think this game is so in-depth and diverse, PvP and PvE, that if you do something for one side, it can affect the other without you even trying. Like I said in a podcast yesterday, if I was a developer, I would probably be more PvP oriented, and I would make changes to fix PvP, and some of them would inevitably, if I didn't go through Battle Spirit or anything like that, some of them would inevitably impact PvE in a negative or, imbalance them in a weird way. Because I'm not trying to, but some changes that you make on this side are going to impact that side if you don't go through Battle Spirit. And so I think that's what's happening here. And so I think that's why we have these higher values. Very well, I could be wrong. They very well could have been like, what? We have this new Markarth ring. We want to sell, Greymore. Let's bump proc sets up, and then, you can stack it with this ring and you get all this proc damage, and you essentially will be able to sell more Greymore, purchases this way. It could be that too. I don't think so. I mean, I could be wrong. Like I said, who knows what the developers are doing, but either way, it's just they're imbalanced. That's what I'm trying to show with the videos, is that they're not very balanced. The second question, and sorry for the rant there, guys. I wanted to try and get all the informational stuff out of the way, but we're gonna have some more fun here. The second question was, these are good. Proc sets should exist because it lowers the skill gap. Now, we can, people have said, like, now that person trying to 1vx us dies now to proc sets, blah, 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 blah. And, it's the belief that proc sets narrow the skill gap. And because it narrows the skill gap, it's better for the game. It's better for bad players. They get to have more fun because they can, XV1 people down more successfully. And I don't agree, and I'm going to show you guys that with videos, and I want to kind of explain things as well. The reason I don't agree is because we've had different proc metas. And every time we have a proc meta, every time damage goes up, good players succeed more than bad players. It doesn't matter what the rules in the game are. Good players are going to succeed with those rules compared to bad players. Whether it's dots, whether it's, high mitigation, whatever, like good players will always, eventually rise to the top. And so it doesn't matter if procs are powerful, doesn't matter if stat-based builds are powerful. All that matters is, are good players and bad players engaging in this environment, And so that's going to lead two questions to you guys. The first one is, okay, if proc sets are powerful, and 1vxers are not wearing proc sets, it can narrow the skill gap, because if one group of people are wearing just stronger sets, you know, like if I'm wearing, you know, let's go stat-based builds, right? If I'm wearing Hunding's Rage and Spriggans, you know, from a couple patches ago, and somebody else is wearing Fury and New Moon, and we're the same player, they're going to have a big advantage over me because they have a gear advantage. You know, those sets were better than the sets that I was running, you know? And so it makes sense, you know, statistically, that they would just be better than me. If I fight 5 people and they're wearing that much better sets than I am, because proc sets are better than stat-based builds, yes, they are going to beat me. And yes, that would narrow the skill gap if I kept not wearing procs. Now, if I started wearing procs, you're going to give me openings and opportunity for free damage. Now, instead of spending a lot of time on my front bar, you know, light attack weaving combinations to get, you know, health down to a certain amount so I could in-cap spec bow or Dawnbreak, execute you, whatever, I can now just hit a poison injection, and I now have venomous smite and sheer venom on you, and I can kite around a tree and stay defensive and survive. And now I just got to wait and see like who's not healing, and the minute somebody doesn't heal properly, I can leap on them, or I can hit them with an ultimate, and it just allows me to, you know, do other things while essentially letting Novocaine do its work. You know, it's going to work, and so I just have to wait it out. And so I've seen it quite a bit. You know, I've seen it quite a bit where these proc sets come into play and people just, you know, good players just succeed. If good players run procs, they just 1vx better, and then, you know, people get upset and then they get balanced. You know, that's typically what happens. And so the other time, before we get into the videos, the only other time I've seen a narrowing of a skill gap is in a tanky meta. You know, if the meta is very tanky, and like this is what we're going to get to before we get into the video. If I'm 1v5ing, you know, trying to fight 5 people, and they're very tanky and they're very hard to kill, the longer the fight drags out, the more the fight tips in their favor, because they have more stats, they have more damage, they have more ultimates, they have more of everything. And all they have to do is just lean on me. You know, they just keep applying pressure, keep applying pressure. If I can't kill them, they're going to wear down my resources. Even if they're not like, don't have high damage, they're eventually going to wear down my resources. And, you know, it's 5 of them versus 1 of me. I'm going to die. You know, in a higher damage situation, if I can eliminate 1 or 2 of them quickly, instead of it being like a 5-on-1 for 2 minutes, it's now a 3-on-1, which means I don't have to heal as much, which means I don't have to, you know, focus on survival as much, which means I can go offensive more and eventually whittle down targets more. And I forget who it was, but there was a guy I was watching. He runs in a 24-man group on Xbox, and he was talking about how this is a couple years ago now, but he was talking about how his groups build in, you know, 35, 40k health, max resistances, and their entire thing is winning the battle of attrition. You know, that's what they do. They run 24-man groups. They don't really have damage dealers or anything like that. They just be tanky, do damage, and they inevitably will just win against lesser, you know, smaller groups of players because they just have more people. And that's what he said in his video. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, you know, I knew groups were building tanky for survival. I didn't know that this was actually like their strategy was to just overwhelm you with the amount of people that you have and just not die. And it makes sense. Like if you're 24v5ing people, there's 24 of you. You don't have to have as much damage. You just build tanky, and like inevitably you're just going to slowly overwhelm them in a tank meta, because you're not going to be easy to kill, and the fight's going to drag out, and the longer it drags out, your side wins. And so I wanted to go back to some old proc videos, because I know like there's a lot of players that didn't play back then, and I wanted to show some of the fun ones that I remember. So this is Cody. Cody used to play. He's bounced back and forth, but yeah, like this is one. I'll provide a link in the description for all these videos. But yeah, he's on a Stam Sork, and it's a completely different game. But you're gonna see he's gonna fight 6 people. D-swing with an execute and a Veldreth. That guy's dead, and now he's got 5 people on top of him. And you know they're gonna jump on him. They're gonna do a bunch of things, and that guy hits him with an in cap. He blocks it, and he's gonna hit a couple dark deals. And just watch how quick this fight goes. He's wearing Veldreth, Black Rose, and Viper. Double kill right there. Dawnbreaker, Veldreth, quick kill. D-swing to half health. He's dead. Crit rush, Dawnbreaker, execute plus another Veldreth. He's dead. And this guy is now dead. We are 36 seconds into the video, and he got a 1v6. This is what used to happen all the time. Everybody was running Viper and Veladreth and or Tremor Scale. You know, it was Viper plus stuff. And it was Viper plus Tremor or Veladreth. And then it was either like Black Rose or Widowmaker or Sheer Venom or something like that. And I have to ask you guys, when was the last time you saw a 1v6 happen in 36 seconds? You know, when was the last time you saw a fight happen this quickly? Not like a quick, oh, like they all come up the door and you're a bomber and, you know, you hit, you know, your Colossus and spin to win and you bomb everybody down. Like this was a single target 1vx and he nuked 6 people in, like I said, 36 seconds. Like that's crazy. That the time to kill is so low in this fight. He didn't really have to worry about survival. You know, she just went in and like nuked half health bars with a Dawnbreaker. You know, Viper plus D-Swing was taking half chunks off their health bar. Let's go to the next one. Everybody we know and love, the Lord of the Daggerfall Covenant, Fingrush. This is his build, Robles Revenge, from around the same time. He's running Black Rose. He's got Viper. He's got Tremor Scale and the Maelstrom Axe. This guy's got 24,000 health. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here. He's got about 24,000 health. Watch how much damage he does on this crit rush. He's got a light attack, crit rush. Half of his health bar is gone. And now he's got a light attack, ransack, bash to proc Tremor Scale and Viper. That guy's dead. Now he's going to have a bunch of people show up. So crit rush, half his health bar is dead. Light attack, ransack, bash, another one's dead. Dawnbreaker, light attack, ransack, bash, another one's dead. We are about, what, 10 seconds in here? He's killed 3 people already. And now you see, like, if this fight had drug on longer, you know, it would have been like a 1-on-6 or 1-on-7, and it probably would have been a little bit different. You see his resources are lower, but he's already killed 4 people very, very quickly. There's a crit rush for the dot. He killed another one. He's going to kill another one right here, and then that one's dead, and it's all over. So once again, another 20 or 30 second fight. He killed 5 people really, really quickly. This was the meta. You know, this was the burst meta. Does this look like it's narrowing the skill gap to you guys so far? Yeah. And I was running this set at, I mean, like everybody else. There, I had my set. I still have my set of Viper and Black Rose. You know, I still have Black Rose. I still have all these sets. In cap plus his procs, 100 to 0. Yeah, this is Cypher's one punch build. If you guys want to go watch all these videos, they're fun to watch. They're fun to go back and look. The game's just completely different. But yeah, this is, you know, Widowmaker, Viper, and Tremor Scale. And you're going to watch right here, like he's going to light attack, ransack, bash, nuke their health bar, Dawnbreaker. You got a double kill. Like, when was the last time you saw somebody just weave like one combination with their DPS, hit an ultimate, and then just nuke 2 people? Like, that just doesn't really happen anymore. So, and then finally we have Sribes. Sribes is probably one of my favorite guys to watch from back in the day, because I used to run a gank build like this also. You know, it was a lot of fun, but yeah, it wasn't fun to deal with because you got your health bar nuked. 25k health. He was running Clever Alchemist, Viper, and Veladreth. And look, like he's just dead. And Cody's a good player. You know, Cody was a good player, and there's just no chance to respond, and players didn't like that. You know, players didn't like the fact that you couldn't respond in enough time to kill these people. And so, you know, they complained rightfully to ZeniMax about, you know, why this is a thing. You know, we can't defend ourselves. And you saw these proc sets get adjusted. You know, Celine used to potentially double proc on dual wield. They put a slow animation on it. It used to proc instantly and it was invisible. You just get hit by like a 15k bear and you were dead. Veladreth would proc instantly. There wouldn't be that little animation to let you know that it's coming. Viper used to be instant damage instead of a dot, and that's another thing that's different now. A lot of those sets were based around burst. You know, they did a bunch of burst damage and it was able to eliminate people quickly. And ZeniMax has been very careful with burst sets in general. They try to avoid burst proc sets quite a bit. Now a lot of their proc sets just do dot damage. You know, they just do dots. And the thing is, you know, you guys are going to ask me in this video, you're going to be like, hey, Else, you know, if you're saying that proc sets help you 1vx, you know, why don't you like them? You know, and it comes down to a few things. Number one, I like variety in PvP. I like people running different things. I have no problem with running across people running proc sets. You know, I have a problem when New Moon and Fury is the best set and there's no other good viable options. I have a problem when Proc Sets are the best viable option. It's fun when there's variety. It's fun when light, medium, and heavy are all good. It's fun when stat-based builds and proc builds are good. It's fun seeing people running different builds. You know, seeing Stam Sorks running like a heal pet now. Like that didn't happen like 2 years ago, but now you see people run around with the Clan Fear because it actually gives a pretty decent heal. Those sorts of things are cool. You know, it's cool to see different builds. I've seen a lot of bow builds, a couple dual wield builds trying to utilize the Black Rose dual wield. Double sword boards existed, you know, on different builds for a long time, but these different builds in this variety allows all of us players to have our own build. I mean, let's be honest. Like I think 85% of 100% of the stats that you find on YouTube are 100% real, but I think that like there's a good chunk of the population that likes their own unique build. Like they'll run meta, and then all of a sudden they'll find something that they like that's theirs. You know, they're like, I run this. This is what I do. And the more sets that are competitive, the more people get to do that. Like, yeah, I know the meta's this, but I'm doing this with my build, you know? And I think that's cool. And so when I'm talking about proc sets, guys, I'm not talking about eliminating them from the game. I'm not talking about nerfing them into obscurity or anything like that. All I'm trying to show in the videos that I've posted is that they're overperforming. You know, they're giving way more damage. They're giving this big window, an opportunity for people like me to get kills, and it's not lowering the skill gap. You know, I went 10-1, 16-3, and 9-3 using one skill and light attacks. I have a pretty good kill death. You know, obviously it's only 3 BGs, but using one skill and light attacks, I was putting up the stats that some people said of a good player. You know, the sets allowed me to have good player stats, which is too much, you know. And so the point that I'm going to bring into this part of the video is, you know, it's what do you want as players? You know, what do we want as players in this game? You know, and I go back to last year when Scalebreaker came out. You know, if you guys played last year during Scalebreaker, dots were ridiculous. Like everybody was running Soul Trap and Entropy. If you go watch Helium Balloon, he was dueling with no armor on his body, with jewelry and a monster set and a frost staff, and he was winning dueling tournaments because he had 4 dots on a Magplar. You know, he had 4 dots on a Magplar, and he was just killing people because the dots were that powerful. He didn't have to wear a full build. He was just able to dot people down. And as that patch went on, more and more people were catching on. You know, you're getting hit by so many different soul traps, and your health bar, like you couldn't dodge soul trap. It was always hitting you. So all of a sudden, if you run across a 15-man group and you're trying to kite away, they cast like 5 soul traps on you. You're struggling to survive from 5 soul traps, you know, because it's that much damage. They were ticking over 1k per. I did a dot build at that point, and eventually you have so much dots, it turns into its own burst. And that's where proc sets are kind of getting to now. You know, it's different because it's not dots the way it used to be, or, you know, it's not Soul Trap and Entropy. It's now proc dot sets. But the thing is Sheer Venom does similar damage to Poison Injection. Venomous Smite does similar damage to Sheer Venom. And so if I wanted to, you know, cast an ability, like if I were to hit somebody with Poison Inject and I were to hit them with another dot and another dot, it takes one global cooldown happens every second. And so it would take me 3 seconds to get 3 different damage over time effects on a player. With Sheer Venom and Venomous Smite, it only takes 1 global cooldown. So I cast that once. I proc 3 different conditions. I can also proc, you know, the poison status effect. And then if I'm wearing a monster set like I was, I can also proc that set. And so you have 3, 4, 5 different conditions all procking within 1 global cooldown. It's a huge advantage for proc sets in that way. And so now all of a sudden, you know, you're able to more efficiently dish out damage faster. So yes, it's not burst damage, but it's a lot more damage coming out per cooldown, which still leads to just a lot of pressure. And especially in no CP, it's not as big of a problem in CP, but in no CP, it's very problematic. And they're increasing healing, and that's a good thing. And they've nerfed Sheer Venom a little bit, but still the problem with this is the stacking of these sets with Markarth. You know, I haven't worn Markarth once in my videos yet. And so if you guys think that I'm doing a lot of damage now, wait until I put Markarth on, you know. I got another couple, at least one video coming, but yeah, that's the issue right now. And so it's not to say that you can't run your own proc sets. It's not to say that they're, you know, they're not whatever. It's, you know, what's fun for the game? Is it fun to have unavoidable dots? You know, like, yes, and people are going to say you can purge them. You know, Templars have a purge, Necros have a purge, Warden can purge one every, what, couple, 5 seconds. A few classes have purge. Efficient purge is not efficient. You know, it's just not. It's not viable. It's not a viable option. Curse Eater is obviously a viable option, but, you know, you're going to lose the battle of attrition if you're attempting to defile, if you're attempting to remove damage over time effects with purges, you're going to lose the battle of, you know, just resources, because I can light attack and poison inject is what, like 2k resources. You know, efficient purge is 4,000 magicka, I think 4,500. You know, you look at extended ritual, or you look at the Templar Purify, I want to say it's like 3,500. So yeah, you can purge all the abilities off of you. I can just cast it back on you again. And so if you want to play the magicka stamina or stamina game of how much resources it's going to cost for the same thing, we can do it all day. I'll eventually run you out of resources by you having to hit Purify so much. You know, so you hit Purify, just hit a poison injection on you again, and it's going to proc Sheer Venom again. It's going to proc Venomous Smite again, and you're better off trying to kill the guy running the proc sets than try and purge all the damage off you. You know, and I mean, except for the Necro Purge. The Necro Purge is fantastic because it's a health-based thing. As long as you have high healing, which you do on a Necro, that one's great. You know, that one's obviously great, but not everybody's a Necro. You know, it's not a viable option to just play Necromancer. You know, so I think they need to be brought back. I think you can reduce the overall damage, and I think you need to put a global cooldown on them. And it doesn't have to be, you can reduce the damage through Battle Spirit. You know, you could say, hey, you know, proc sets are reduced by 10% via Battle Spirit. You know, just bring them in line a little bit more. And they have a global cooldown, meaning that if you're running Sheer Venom, you can't proc another set until Sheer Venom's proc is done. This would help alleviate a lot of the issues of the stacking of the sets. You know, Sheer Venom by itself isn't as problematic, but when you have Sheer Venom and Venomous Smite and, you know, Scoria and all of this, and you're, you know, fighting one person and they're cloaking around and they're just waiting for this damage, and you're popping vigors and trying to purify, and all they have to do is just kind of stay at range and just like let the Novocaine do its work, that's when it becomes an issue. You know, that's when it becomes problematic to deal with. And you can stop that by doing that. You can stop it by reducing the overall damage. You can stop it by having proc sets scale off of your overall weapon damage and spell damage. So the more weapon and spell damage you have, the more damage your proc sets do. That would kind of incentivize you to not run multiple proc sets that way. There's multiple different ways to go about doing it. You know, those are just a few. Obviously you guys might have other ones, but yeah, the whole goal, you know, on my channel is I like to have viable options on all builds. You know, I like to see unique builds, proc sets involved, non-proc sets involved, everything. And I typically, on my channel, this hasn't happened in the last couple months, but I typically try to play the weaker classes. You know, I've been doing YouTube content for a few years now, and typically when I post builds, I typically play the weaker classes per patch. You know, that's typically what I try to do. Like when people tell me like, hey, you know, this class isn't performing very well right now, I like to go out there and, you know, help them, because I enjoy this game. I enjoy playing this game. And as much as I do, I enjoy helping people succeed at this game. You know, so if somebody's having a hard time on Magic Dragon Knight and I post a build for them and they're like, hey man, like I was able to 1vx for the first time ever on my Magic Dragon Knight. Thank you so much. That's awesome. You know, that's what I get more enjoyment out of that than a bigger 1vx clip. You know, I get more enjoyment out of, you know, helping those types of players. And so when I talk about balance on my channel, my goal is to always raise the floor of classes. You know, it's always to raise the floor of classes and make stuff more competitive, you know, because I'm typically playing, and that's not so much the case the last couple months. You know, I've been taking a break and, you know, I haven't wanted to dive into it that hard, but that's typically how my channel functions. You know, I'll run everything, but then I do more of a focus on the weaker classes. And so those weaker classes are always fluctuating. So I don't have that built-in bias like, oh, I'm a stamina Nightblade, I want good things for my stamina Nightblade. I'm a 1vxer, I want good things for my 1vx, you know, capabilities. I'm trying to look for things that, you know, allow different classes and different builds to succeed in their own unique way, because it's fun and challenging for me to hop on new classes and new builds, and it's also fun and challenging to hop on weaker classes and weaker builds, and it, you know, just allows me to point some of this stuff out. So we all have inherited biases, okay? Like we all have some sort of bias, you know, whether we mean to have it or not, we just do, you know? So I'm not saying that I'm unbiased, because I am, you know, like I'm easily biased by my own personal skill with each class that I play. I'm better on some classes, so because I'm better on them, I don't think some changes are as bad as they are, because it's just, okay, well, I'm still gonna be able to kill people. You know, like I have that type of bias on good classes, the classes that I'm good at. Classes that I'm not as good at, you know, obviously I think they're weaker because I'm not as good on them as other classes. And so, that's always going to exist, you know, and if you only play one class, you only have the experience of playing it of fighting something else, you know, and it's not that you're wrong on your opinion, but you don't have the full, like, okay, I've played this and I fought against it, here's the weak point. Like, you can't identify every issue. And so that's where a lot of bias comes into play, whether, you know, it's intentional or not. And that's why, you know, I think we need to have these discussions, you know. And so, yes, proc sets do help me. They do help me come out with, you know, sexier 1vx clips, but that's not the goal of my channel. That's not the goal of my content. Yes, you know, it's part of my content. You know, it's part of my content to have 1vx clips to show my builds and do all these other sorts of things, but it's not the only thing that I'm posting. You know, it's not the only thing that I'm talking about. So it comes down to what you want to have. You know, I'd rather, you know, if I'm fighting 12 people, I'm getting zerged down no matter what. You know, like I'm not typically winning a 1v12. I have a better chance with proc sets right now, for sure. But just like Scalebreaker, and with how annoying Scalebreaker dots were, I have the same feeling when I have Venomous Smite and Sheer Venom and Savara's proccing. I mean, all these other things, and I have all these dots, and I'm just like, I'm getting ravaged by dots and nobody's near me. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, they haven't even done anything yet, and like, you know, 30-40% of my health bar is gone, you know. That's where the imbalance is. And, you know, some people are still going to disagree. Some people still are disagreeing. They watch my video. I saw somebody post yesterday, they're like, that's the way the game is supposed to be played. You're supposed to be able to light attack and poison injection people and kill them. And I'm looking at them like, we're just going to have to agree to disagree, you know, because I don't agree with that at all. You know, like, people get mad about D-Swing being a one button build, and then in the same vein, you're just like, yeah, poison injection's cool. Poison injection's cool. A damage over time effect, that's cool. You're supposed to kill people like that, but we got to nerf D-Swing. It's like, oh, okay. So, yeah, that's gonna be the end of this video. Hopefully, you know, this gets my point of view across a little bit better. You know, like I said, whether you agree or disagree, that's fine. Not a big deal. You know, it's not a big deal to me if you disagree, but, you know, just the amount of free, I guess we should talk about that. We should talk about the amount of free damage that you get. I've posted a few times on the forums, and I can, you know, go through it, but proc sets that do proc damage are free damage. And they're free damage. Somebody did the mathematical comparison on Sheer Venom, and they were basically saying, like, in order to have the same value of Sheer Venom, you would need 600, 700 plus weapon damage at 100% health, and double that when it gets to execute range. There's no set in the game that exists that has 1,000, 1,200, 1,400 weapon damage. You have to scale in a lot more weapon damage and stat-based sets to get the same damage off of some of these procs. And that's where it is. And like I said, you don't have to be math intensive to just see this. You don't have to be math intensive to just know that this is a thing. If I put on Clever Alchemist and New Moon, and I went into a BG and I tried to poison inject everybody, I would not have nearly the same success that I did with Sheer Venom and Venomous Smite. You know, even if I was pumping as much stat-based sets as possible, if I went all weapon damage with Clever Alchemist, like I said, with all as much weapon damage as the game is allowing me to have, if I went in there, I wouldn't get close to the same damage doing the same thing. You know, yes, I can get 1.4 million damage scores using a full rotation and doing full combinations, but I couldn't get close to 1.4 million damage just light attack poison injecting people. And if you disagree with that, go try it. Seriously, go put on Venomous Smite, go put on Sheer Venom, go light attack poison inject, put your own skill into play, see exactly what you can do by just light attacking and poison injecting, and then put on Clever Alchemist and New Moon, and then go do the exact same thing and compare your overall damage. It's going to be a lot lower. And so that's where the free damage is coming in, because you're doing the exact same thing and you're getting more out of it. You're getting more out of it than you would with something else. Hence the reason it's free. So you don't have to do anything else to get it. You don't have to do anything else in order to acquire it. It's just more damage than its counterparts. So it's free in comparison. I've seen that like quite a bit. I'm tired of people talking about how it's free damage. It's free damage. Now, if there were sets out there that were giving us 700, 800, 900 weapon damage, you know, if we had 5-piece sets that were giving us that amount of weapon damage, and then that it bumped our healing up a little bit, then yes, you know, that would then start to be comparable. You know, that would start to be comparable to the current proc sets. But they don't exist. They don't currently exist in the game. And so because they don't exist, that's why proc sets are currently better. So yeah, if you guys want to see the post that I did on that, I'll provide a link in the description to the Sheer Venom post as well. I'll also provide a link to the post that I did talking about Calurians on a gank build and why it's just better than other stat-based builds. You know, I did some math on it in there. I'm not going to talk about it on this video because it's pretty long, but long story short, even with a full max stat-based build for a burst combination, you get 20 to 30% more damage with Calurians on a burst combination. It's 20 to 30% more. And you guys can go and double check that math later, but I've done those sorts of math comparisons, and yeah, if you guys are interested, feel free to go check it out. Now I'm going to end this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please provide in the section below. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.